This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to a new edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center, and I'm joined by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. We're going to talk about the governor's election, Maura.
Oh, yay.
This is coming up here, and we find that it's hard to turn on your television set without being aware of this now.
Right. Well, we definitely have the primary, so we have several months ahead of us of this. So I think it'll be a topic for a while.
We do. It's a great stimulant for the advertising industry, isn't it?
It sure is.
But we have a good guest with us today to talk about this race and other political happenings in the capital, the state capital, and that is the veteran and senior reporter from the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, Brad Bumsted. Brad, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charlie.
Nice to have you back.
Nice to be back.
You've been busy.
I have been.
Yes.
Oh, and you've been busy for years, Brad. You've been covering Harrisburg and Pennsylvania politics, and you have one of the best memories in the Commonwealth. As we look at this particular race, anything stand out about this race? Anything that's different about this governor's race as opposed to some of the ones that we've seen recently?
Well, yes. I mean, I don't think we've seen an incumbent as vulnerable as Tom Corbett is, the Republican governor, right now. I'm not saying that he's going to lose by any means, but just at this, if you took a snapshot of this moment in time, you know, he's very vulnerable, and I can't recall, other than Dick Thornburg for his re-election did have a difficult time of it, but it didn't even appear that he was in as much trouble as he was until the numbers came in. Of course, we have polling now. You know, we get a new poll every week, so it's a little different. We have a better idea, but that's one thing that's different. The other is, and I don't recall this, but probably not since Milton Schaap, came in and was the man against the machine and spent his own money. He was very wealthy. And we see Tom Wolf, spending several $1 million up front in February. He takes a lead in the Democratic side of the governor's race, and so far no one's been able to catch him. So the big question is, can anyone catch Tom Wolf right now? The three opponents would be Allison Schwartz, a member of Congress, Treasurer Rob McCord, and former DEP Secretary Katie McGinty.
Well, they certainly are spending a lot of money on advertising already, especially on the Democratic side. And the governor's recently come out with some ads, including ones that feature Mrs. Corbett, which I understand is people think is one of his biggest assets is Mrs. Corbett. Yeah, she's a lovely lady.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In terms of on the Democratic side, Tom Wolf came out early with advertisements and then shot to the top. Everyone thought it was going to be McCord. And it just seems like everybody else can't really get their legs under them, although McCord is really having more advertising now. How do you think, we're coming up on the primary, how do you think it's all going to shake out?
Well, I would only disagree with you slightly that initially, not that everybody thought it was going to be McCord, Allison Schwartz was viewed as a front runner
I forgot
by
about
many.
No, you're right.
But insiders viewed McCord as the person who could win it. And there was a test vote at Democratic State Committee for an endorsement, and they knew that there wouldn't be enough for an endorsement, but McCord got the most votes of the party insiders. And that is his biggest strength here. If he has a hope and a chance to beat Wolf, it's countering now with his own advertising and having the ground game, if you will, to get people to the polls and hand out literature and do all the things you need in a political organization. McCord does have that. Schwartz's hope is that if she can, find the right window to come in with her advertising when people just start to pay attention, maybe that can be the thing that, seals the deal for her. McGinty's hope at this point would be that everybody starts fighting, and it's such a huge cat fight, including Wolf dragged into it, that she looks like the person to go with because she's not attacking anybody.
The only sane person in the bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that was surprising to some of us was that Jack Wagner could have been a formidable candidate. He's run before. He was a very successful Auditor General for 2 terms, and from the West, and all the other candidates in the Democratic primary are from the East. It seemed like the way was paved for him for this nomination. What happened to Jack Wagner?
I don't know exactly what happened to Jack Wagner beyond the usual problem that Jack Wagner had, which is he couldn't raise campaign money. That was his problem when he ran in 2010, but at the time he was a sitting row office holder. He was Auditor General.
Now, in 2010, he couldn't raise money because he had some critical reports to the governor, and Governor Rendell stepped in to make sure he couldn't raise money.
That was correct. That may be part of it, but historically, he has not been a fundraiser. Okay. I don't know what it is exactly. I don't know. Maybe to his credit, he just finds it distasteful, and he can't. Well, I can't pick up the phone to ask people for campaign money.
I mean,
he did say that in 2010 during the race that all you people are getting political PAC money, and I'm not, and I don't like doing that. I won't be beholden to anybody. That's what he said. So I don't know what the real reason is, but yeah, he was positioned, as you say, as the Western Pennsylvania candidate, and I thought that he at least could come in and maybe. There was an outside chance that he could sneak in there because of if the numbers were really split. But that assumed that it was going to be a close race between all the other people, maybe a couple points apart, and then he could do well. But when you have Wolf out with 30-some% early on, there's no way of catching him. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe he realized that there was no way he could sneak in as the Western Pennsylvania candidate.
When do you think on the Democratic side we'll see a shift from this is what I'm all about and this is how you can distinguish me from the governor to the infighting? When will they start going after each other?
Now.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. You think it's going to start now? Yeah.
Yeah, it has to. There's a month left.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I think that will intensify. We'll see a curve. And the final 2 weeks is when it'll really get bloody.
Yeah.
But I think turn on your set tonight, you may see it. I'm not sure when this is running, but
on another state television network that'll go unmentioned, I recently saw my former boss, Senator Jubelier, talking about this race with, or one of the Democratic debates with former Lieutenant Governor Mark Singal. And they both agreed, Senator Jubelier made the point that this first ad by Tom Wolf may be the best political ad he has ever seen at any level, national or state or local. That ad took my breath away, and I called the rest of my family in and I said, "You've got to see this. Yeah. This has, Chevy, apple pie, and baseball, and then they threw in the Liberty Bell as well."
I agree. Yeah,
what do you think of this?
That ad was terrific. His early ads, several of them were really good, but that first one that showed his family, it was an introductory ad, showed his family, gave his credentials, PhD from MIT. Showed his Jeep, and he turned down perks when he was a state revenue secretary. Really crammed a lot of information into a minute. I just thought it was a great ad. But I was at shortly after that ran, I was at Democratic State Committee, and I was talking to a lobbyist and his wife, and she told me that they were sitting in bed watching TV, and she wasn't paying much attention, reading too, I guess, and just sat up. She said, "I just shot up," were her words, to see this ad, and said, "Who is that?" Mm-hmm. That it just got her attention.
Nobody asks that question anymore.
No, they don't. They know who he is.
Yeah, and that's it had its intended effect.
It did.
Put his name out there and on the map, and it's been successful for him.
In a positive way. And now what that does for him is now when the attacks begin, and I don't know what all they're going to attack Tom Wolf on, but in my view, there isn't a lot that's substantial that they can use. I mean, politicians can always make it look pretty good.
Yeah.
But in terms of scandals or terrible things, there isn't that much. He's a businessman. Maybe there'll be some deal that went south that we don't know. Who knows? But he has built up credibility with the voters. So as these attacks occur, he's got a cushion.
Yeah, he's going to have some thick skin in the coming weeks.
He is.
Yeah.
But they're going to have some really penetrating ads and arguments to pierce that support that he has.
Yeah. Well, the governor has an opponent who's probably gotten more name recognition through court cases than anything else. What do you think the governor needs to do as he heads into the primary to distinguish himself, or maybe not even do anything?
Well, his primary opponent is Bob Guzzardi, a wealthy Montgomery County lawyer who says he's not going to spend a dime of his own money. He's there more or less as a protest candidate, as a choice for conservatives in particular to say no to Tom Corbett. He's not going to spend any money, but he is going to continue what he has been doing, and that's putting out a blog that attacks Corbett and says he hasn't kept his promises. Of course, Corbett is going to be countering that with ads that say he has kept all his promises and kept spending down and kept budgets on time. Good luck with this budget being on time. But in any case, no, I don't think he has to do anything particular other than what he's doing. But I do think he has to be careful and conserve his money because, chances are he's going to be facing Tom Wolf, and Wolf would come out of this primary, if things go the way they look right now, with some real momentum.
Well, Rob McCord, as Morris said, at one point looked like he might be one of the leading candidates. Allison Schwartz looked like she would be one of the leading candidates early on. Rob McCord recently had generated a little bit of controversy due to his ad focusing on the fact that he came from a single-parent family.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a stepbrother stepped up and said,
hey, what about me?
what about my side of the family?
Yeah.
Didn't my parent also parent you? And what was that all about? And what's the aftermath of that?
I don't think. I think it's much to do about nothing. I mean, I don't. It's important to them and their family, I'm sure, but in terms of making a huge impact on the voters, I don't think it really hurts McCord. It's. Oh, I guess it could. Question his. To some voters who probably weren't going to vote for him anyway, question his veracity in terms of this ad being accurate. But in the big scheme of things, it's not a real killer. Let's put it that way.
Maybe a little bit of lack of communication between Mr. McCord and his stepbrother, to be sure.
Yeah. I don't think
sibling rivalry.
Yeah, I don't see that as a big deal. I mean, McCord does have other good ads, and one thing about McCord is he's when you see him in a debate, he's the most willing to mix it up with the other ones.
Yeah.
He looks like he'd like to, just. Put him up and start swinging.
Yeah.
From here, I think he will be a tenacious opponent for Tom Wolf.
Can Tom Wolf stand toe to toe with if he would be Democratic candidate? Can he stand toe to toe and give and take with Governor Corbett, who's seasoned at this sort of thing?
Well, I think so. I mean, Tom Wolf, one of his attributes is that he's, quote, not a politician. Now, of course, he's become a pretty good politician to be where he's at right now, but, he, other than serving as revenue secretary, largely his background is as a businessman, and that's his appeal. So, he may not be, polished in every way. Corbett certainly isn't either, like a lot of politicians are, but he's smart as a whip, obviously, with all his degrees, and I think he could, do a debate with anyone. Actually.
Maura, you have the last 30-second question.
Well, if Governor Corbett called you today and said, Brad, I need your advice, what should I do differently heading into the last several months after the primary, what would you tell him?
My advice, would I've already written in columns more or less, and he hasn't taken it, and I don't think he would.
He might.
No, I don't think. Because I believe that he is the only person at the Capitol with the creds, if you will, to take on all the corruption that's occurred because of what he did as Attorney General. He put, most of these people in jail, 23 of 26 convictions for corruption in the legislature. And I think he's the one person who could stand up and say, this has to stop. Here's what we need to do. He ran on it in 2010, didn't really deliver on it. And I think he could really make some headway with that argument now because he's a natural and he's got real credibility to make that argument.
Okay. And we did not talk about the Attorney General's race, so we'll have to have Brad back.
Absolutely.
Or the Attorney General, Attorney General issues, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you back in the near future here, Brad, and thank you very much, and good luck with sales of your book. If you haven't bought Brad Bumsted's new book about corruption in Pennsylvania politics, go ahead and go to Amazon and order it under Brad Bumsted.
For a shameless plug, it's Keystone Corruption.
A shameless plug, imagine that. Okay, we're going to our next segment right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The Council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions to make the Commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States, and by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by Penn Waste, your best local choice for your waste removal and recycling needs.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. Maura and I are fortunate enough in this second segment of the show to be joined by Kevin Shivers. You are the Executive Director of the National Federation of Independent Businesses for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Is that right?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me on your program again.
Great to
You're
have you.
welcome. Can you tell us just a little bit, just quickly for our viewers, 30-second tutorial on what NFIB is and what it does?
Sure. Our members are small business owners in virtually every sector of Pennsylvania's economy. The common denominator for our members is that they're not publicly traded companies on a stock exchange. They're closely held businesses, family-owned businesses, mom-and-pop businesses of every size and variety in Pennsylvania.
Kevin, in preparation for today's discussion, I read a bunch of headlines, and the one that made me actually laugh out loud said, "Liquor privatization, now's the time." Now, doesn't that make, it's been the time. And I think they probably keep recycling these headlines over the last several years because it's a conversation that we keep having. And we're happy to have you here. It's been one of Governor Corbett's main issues is liquor privatization, also known as liquor reform. What is going on? Tell us what's happening.
In fact, I want to jump in here. You are going to be a politician. You're going to be running for office because he has a quote all over the press. Let's get it right.
Yeah.
What a great quote. Let's get it right.
Yeah.
Now's the
How do
time.
we
Let's get
it
it right.
Sure. Well, it's like a fine wine. Sometimes you need a little bit of aging, and
he just can't help himself.
Oh, that's good.
Privatization has been in the cask now for 70 plus years.
At least.
And if you remember, that beautiful quote by Gifford Pinchot when he signed the privatization law back 70 plus years ago, he wanted to make the system of making the sale of alcohol as inconvenient as possible.
Yeah.
I'm butchering the quote a little bit,
but
it was the one government program that actually worked. And I think the reason why it's taken so long, folks, is that the private sector has never been able to figure out a way to make it profitable. Obviously, when you turn programs over to the private sector, we believe they're going to do it better. They're going to do it more cheaply. They're going to do it more efficiently. But at the end of the day, they got to figure out a way to make money doing it. Otherwise, the costs are such that they don't want to get involved. And I think that's been the big problem thus far, is that every plan that has been proposed for the last several decades has had high costs that have made it unattractive. And so the business community has never really engaged in the debate to actually get it done here in Harrisburg. That's changed. NFIB is part of a large coalition with the state chamber, the Pennsylvania food merchants representing grocery stores and convenience stores in Pennsylvania. Our coalition includes retailers, box retailers, and small beer distributors and others who want, they believe that Main Street can do it better, but we need to make sure we do it right. We have to come up with a privatization plan that enables those private sector employers to make money. If we can do that, the way they're going to do that is by giving consumers the convenience that they demand and expect, and we believe that we can generate tens of millions of dollars in new state tax revenue, which in this budget year is vitally important.
Kevin, the average voter looks at Harrisburg and they say, the Senate, controlled by the Republicans, the House, controlled by the Republicans, the governor is a Republican. The Republican Party is for liquor privatization, but yet here, 2 years in, 4 years in, excuse me, we haven't been able to achieve it.
70 years in.
What's been the problem?
Well, it's the last vestiges of the old Prohibition era, and it really is a communist-style government-run system. The way that we make alcohol available in Pennsylvania, and what has happened is we have all these monopolies. You have one segment of our business population that control beer. You have another segment of the population that the government controls liquor. You have some private businesses that do sell glasses of wine and spirits. And what you found is that every one of these constituencies says, don't take away mine, but if you give me theirs, I can actually do it better. But I'm not willing to, get rid of my piece, but I want their piece. And again, when you have the Soviet-style system for selling products in the marketplace, you get caught up in those kinds of divisions. The beauty with the business plan that has been developed that puts consumers first is that all of these groups, the associations representing the majority of these folks that sell these products, all came together and recognized, we realize if we want to meet consumer demand, we all have to work together to do that. That doesn't mean that any one of us is going to have the exclusivity to sell all of the products, that you can only get these products here. That means that to true market competition, true consumer convenience, means that we have to have an open market where consumers can buy these products where they shop. That makes sense. That's just common sense. The unfortunate thing is sometimes politics and trying to get what is politically possible doesn't always match up with what is really practical in the terms of consumers. And let's take a look at a recent example of that. The legislature and the governor signed a law allowing small games of chance in taverns and restaurants where people could go in and game. Well, guess what? Only 4 taverns in the state have actually applied for that license.
Very expensive.
Absolutely. You create those hurdles, and when an employer takes a look at that and says, look, I've got all of these other costs that I need to pay for. I've got to hire people. I've got all of the mandates that I have to, the insurances. Am I going to buy this license if I can't make money doing it? No, they won't. The problem is that with our liquor system, it's a money loser. This bleeds out money every year. We believe that Main Street actually can do it better. If you give them the ability to sell to whoever they want, allow them to pick whatever products they want to sell, and give them the ability to market those products to whomever they sell, we think that we can create a system that in Pennsylvania will generate about $800 million in tax revenue in the first year and will move Pennsylvania in the 21st century.
Okay, now you're making way too much sense.
I know, it's hard, but this early in the morning, right?
It is, it's crazy. You're making way too much sense, and consumer-driven, what a concept, consumer-focused. I heard a rumor that there's still talk of piecemealing this. Let's just carve out wine, I heard. Why?
Yes, some of the articles out there are talking about that. Let's do it in steps, just like we did with gaming.
Right.
But the only difference is with gaming, you didn't have people fighting over the tables and the slots. Like, don't put, the slot. Everybody recognized that, people are going to come to the casino to have all these interests. The problem that you run into is if you just privatize wine and you put wine bottles on the shelves. I mean, some of the proposals that we're hearing is that you're only going to be allowed to buy 3 bottles of wine. Okay, so you have a wedding, or you have that family reunion,
Christmas
or that,
time.
Or Memorial Day is coming up. We're only allowed to buy 4 bottles at a time. And God forbid you want to have a keg. Well, you have to go to another store over there. And you're still under these plans. You're going to have to go to the state government store to buy your liquor. So now you've given me 3 separate trips that I have to go to. We believe that consumers are going to rebel against such a plan.
Well, if you walk into a wine store now, you can leave with more than 3 bottles.
Sure.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It makes no sense.
And imagine limiting the floor space in a beer distributor who wants to become a package store, and you tell them, the reports say that 75% of their floor space has to be dedicated to the sale of beer, and only 25% of their floor space can be dedicated to wine. So if I want to be that party store that, if you're having a wedding or a graduation party and you want to come and buy a half a keg, and you want to buy, bottles of wine, we're going to limit you in the kinds of and varieties that you want. That's, politically expedient, but that's not consumer friendly. Sure, that might be a step forward in Pennsylvania. We think it's a step sideways,
It is.
and ultimately the public is going to rebel.
Kevin, why did that experiment earlier on in the administration fail? There was this experiment of putting what amounted to machines to dispense wine in some of the grocery stores.
Why it failed.
Why did that fail? There was an attempt there to carve out wine and make wine available to grocery stores, and that failed. What happened there?
Well,
Mara, jump in.
Well, it was just a crazy idea.
Well,
That's not a very good
ultimate.
answer.
You know, it's the ultimate in Soviet style thinking that we'll give limited quantities of something to folks. We're going to make them, blow through a straw, and some bureaucrat in Central Command is going to determine whether they're old enough and whether they're not drunk. And oh, by the way, there's only a handful of brands. But get this: the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board already is recognizing that their existing system is a loser, and all across the Commonwealth they are closing their state stores and they're going to instead they're installing what we're calling these kiosks, and there are a couple of grocery stores where they have these little boutique state stores where you can get limited quantities of liquor and limited quantities of wine. Well, guess what? The actual store owners are getting complaints because these little state stores and these grocery stores, they shut down on Sunday. Their hours are not in sync with the store hours, and it's the private sector that's getting the grief for that. These are government stores. It's not like these grocery stores have put in new areas where you can buy liquor and wine. These are government stores, and yet again, they're not meeting consumer demands, and they're not being very well received by the public.
We have a minute left. 2 30-second questions. You get the first one.
Where can people go on the internet to get more information about Pennsylvania and its liquor reform?
Absolutely. You can visit Main Street Does It Better and .org, and you can learn more about all of the efforts in Pennsylvania to privatize it. We're getting close, right? It's only been 70 plus years. Good legislation takes time, and we're hoping that we can get this done in the remaining weeks and months before the budget.
Consumer focus.
Kevin, is it possible for the beer distributors, the state store employees union, and the business community to find common ground?
There are
20 seconds.
There are beer distributors and other restaurateurs, convenience store owners that are part of the plan that the business community has put together, and they are supportive of this effort. There may be other associations and others who disagree, but we actually have the people that are selling these products to the public engaged in this plan, and we think that's why it's a real winner.
Get to work. Get to work.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming. We want to have you come back and follow this subject. We want to thank you for being with us again, and Mara and I will see you next week again on Behind the Headlines. Tune in.